In the definition of text, from a communicative approach, a series of characteristics make up the properties of text. They are the requirements that any text and verbal manifestation must meet in order to be considered a text. There are 6 of them: adequacy, coherence, cohesion, grammar or correctness, presentation, and stylistics. Each of these corresponds to a linguistic or extralinguistic level of analysis and describes the various rules that the text has to comply with. Obviously, the boundary between these properties is blurred and, to some extent, misleading, since all 6 properties refer to the same reality but they only make sense as a whole. Here, we are going to talk about connectors and organizational markers. Connectors are the words that appear in the text making the connection explicit, and they are the cohesive semantic relationships between statements. It is not accurate to say that connectors link 2 statements, because the presence of a connector is neither necessary nor sufficient for the connection. Therefore, the connector does not connect as such, but reflects a relationship that must exist in the text. In the process of text production-reception, the connector is a clue to a quicker and more reliable interpretation of the message that the sender wants to convey. It is a superficial syntactic mark that reflects semantic and pragmatic relations existing between the connected terms or paragraphs. Thus, 3 main types of connectors: syntactic, metadiscursive, discourse markers. Syntactic connectors. 1. Conjunctions, both coordinating and subordinating conjunctions, and conjunctive locutions, and, even, but. 2. Adverbs and adverbial locutions, placed at the beginning of the sentence or just preceded by sentence or simply preceded by circumstantial complements. Firstly, secondly, etc. 3. Prepositional locutions, after, before, without. 4. Whole sentences, provided they function as discourse organizers. In other words, at the same time, as you already know, if I am not mistaken. Metadiscursive connectors. These are those which reflect the process of constructing the text. They are also called textual organizers because they show the organization of the discourse by pointing out the parts and the progress of the information. They are marks of the constructive activity of the speakers, who use them to link sequences, paragraphs, or parts of a text, sections, chapters, etc. They are: 1. Exemplification detail, as a sample, so, as it is now, to cite a case, for example, in particular, especially, etc. 2. Clarification, i.e. in other words, rather said, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, in fact, in other terms, in passing, in any case, to be more precise, on the other hand, as far as that is concerned, in this aspect, etc. 3. Summary conclusion. Briefly, in a nutshell, in one word, in conclusion, in summary, to recapitulate, to finish, to summarize what we have said so far, as I have been. 4. Textual retrieval, as I have been saying, as I was saying, going back to our topic, going back to the first point. 5. Exclusion, in no case, in no way, in any way, leaving aside, on the contrary, instead of, contrary to, apart from, except for, in other respects, elsewhere, etc. 6. Temporary, before, until the moment, finally, to finish, to conclude, in short, etc. In the spoken language, but only in it, we have discourse markers as well. These are pieces that appear in spoken discourse and are used to delimit units of speech such as propositions, speech acts, intonation units. They usually appear at the beginning of an utterance, without forming part of its syntactic structure. They are used as markers, with respect to the meaning they have in other functions. Some of them are. Well, I wanted to say that. You know. Indeed. I would like to add that in terms of structures, TVDEK's classical methodology has been adopted by several authors, as well as Wehrlich's textual typology. These structures are usually the ones that are worked on in the classroom nowadays to help us understand a text. They help us understand the system of rules, at its different levels, which are the basis for the production of utterances. If coherence refers to the process of structuring the text by the speaker, and cohesion refers to the interpretation of the text by the listener. Both of them have to produce and recognize the text structures and the connections between its elements. In doing so, they use both the rules of the textual level and those of the language system.